His absolute best to boot veteran Labour MP Diane Abbott out of the party before the last election. And he failed miserably.
Amazing opportunity for all of us. So we want to take this forward. We want people to feed into this. We're absolutely determined.
Did Keir Starmer just betray millions of women? Diane Abbott thinks so, and she's not holding back. In a stunning confrontation during Prime Minister's questions, Abbott exposed Starmer's apparent disregard for the Waspi women. But it's not just about broken promises. Abbott's takedown reveals a deeper issue at the heart of Labour leadership.
Whatever he was or did, he was her son, and she deserves our sympathy and respect.
Along. Now, it's been 150 days of Sir Keir Starmer as Prime Minister. It's been the kind of car crash that the M6 will be proud.
As we unpack this explosive exchange, you'll see why Starmer's credibility is now hanging by a thread. Picture this: Prime Minister's questions, the House of Commons buzzing with anticipation. Suddenly, Diane Abbott rises, her voice cutting through the chatter. She's not here to mince words. Abbott's question to Keir Starmer is a verbal dagger, aimed straight at the heart of his leadership. When will the Labour Party honour its commitment to the Waspi women? Abbott demands, her eyes locked on Starmer. The tension in the room is palpable. You could hear a pin drop as everyone waits for Starmer's response. But Starmer's reaction is telling. He shifts uncomfortably, his dismissive tone barely masking his irritation. It's as if he's swatting away an annoying fly rather than addressing a serious issue affecting millions of women. Abbott, however, isn't backing down. She presses on, determined to expose what she sees as Starmer's fundamental disconnect from the people he claims to represent. Abbott's criticism cuts deep.
And uncensored has become the walking embodiment of that eternal truth. On Tuesday, Starmer's government announced they would be refusing.
And that's what these policies are designed to achieve, and that's why the White Paper will be published imminently.
She points out Starmer's privileged background, his lucrative career as a barrister, his knighthood. How can someone so far removed from the everyday struggles of ordinary people truly understand their plight? It's a damning indictment of Starmer's leadership, suggesting that he's more at home in the corridors of power than in the living rooms of those he's meant to champion. But this confrontation in the Commons was just the opening salvo. Abbott's full critique came later on Newsnight, where she didn't hold back. Her assessment of Starmer's political instincts was scathing. She painted a picture of a leader out of touch, more concerned with appeasing the right-wing press than standing up for Labour's core values.
Now, there's an old piece of wisdom that goes like this: never pick a fight you can't finish. And Diane Abbott, gloves off, unbothered.
And then the final bit for this morning is the police indexing, the way that we count it across different police forces, because at the moment it's quite hard to get your...
Abbott's words have ignited a firestorm of debate within the Labour Party and beyond. They've exposed a growing rift between the party's leadership and its traditional base. As we dig deeper into this confrontation, we'll uncover the deeper implications for Labour's future and the women who feel betrayed by Starmer's broken promises. Abbott's accusations of betrayal aren't just empty rhetoric. They're rooted in a scandal that's affected millions of women across the UK. But just how deep does this betrayal go? And why are so many feeling abandoned by the very party that promised to fight for them? Enter the Waspi campaign. Women Against State Pension Inequality. These aren't just any women. They're the ones born in the 1950s who suddenly found themselves caught in a pension nightmare. The government changed the rules on them, raising the state pension age without proper warning.
Well, our electoral system says we have to endure another 150 days, but you know, the question should be, how much damage is he going to cause in the next 150 days?
These are women born in the 1950s who may have suffered significant financial hardship after successive governments failed to notify them of changes.
Imagine planning your entire life around retiring at 60, only to be told at the last minute that you'll have to work for years longer. It's not just inconvenient, it's life-altering. The financial hardship faced by these women is staggering. Many have been forced to drain their savings, sell their homes, or rely on family members just to get by. But it's not just about money. The emotional toll is immense. These women feel betrayed, ignored, and cast aside by a system they trusted. They've spent their lives contributing to society, only to be told their needs don't matter. Labour, under previous leadership, had promised to support these women. They pledged to right this wrong, to fight for compensation. It was a beacon of hope for those who felt abandoned. But promises, as we've seen, can be fragile things in the world of politics. The numbers are sobering. We're talking about potentially millions of women affected, with compensation costs potentially running into the billions. It's a massive issue, one that can't be swept under the rug or dismissed with a wave of the hand. So, where does Keir Starmer stand on this? After all the promises, all the expectations, surely he'd be championing their cause. The reality is far different.
But you will know that over the years there's been a series of deaths at the hands of the Metropolitan Police. The opportunity to force her resignation by voting Labour in the general election.
Starmer has refused to commit to compensation for these women. It's a stunning reversal, a slap in the face to those who believed Labour would fight for them. This isn't just about pensions. It's about trust, about the very credibility of the Labour Party. How can they claim to represent working people when they turn their backs on some of the most vulnerable in society? It's a question that's echoing through Labour's traditional heartlands, and one that Starmer will find increasingly difficult to ignore. Keir Starmer turns his back on vulnerable pensioners, but his own financial future seems secure. A little-known piece of legislation ensures he'll never have to worry about his golden years. But how much is this special treatment really worth? The pensions increase, pension schemes for Keir Starmer QC, Regulations 2013 isn't just some dry legal jargon. It's a tailor-made law that gives Starmer a massive advantage over ordinary Brits. This secondary legislation allows him to sidestep the lifetime allowance limit on his pension contributions from his time as Director of Public Prosecutions. In plain English, Starmer gets a tax break on pension savings exceeding $1 million. Let that sink in for a moment. While Waspi women struggle to make ends meet, forced to work years longer than they planned, Starmer sits pretty on a golden nest egg. It's a stark contrast that's hard to ignore. These women, born in the 1950s, had the rug pulled out from under them with little warning. Many have drained their savings or sold their homes just to survive. Starmer, on the other hand, has a cushy retirement to look forward to, courtesy of the taxpayers. The political implications of this revelation are significant. How can Starmer claim to understand the struggles of working-class people when his own financial reality is so far removed from theirs? It's a question that's gaining traction among voters and party members alike.
I had a rather splendid afro at the time. I don't have the same hairstyle.
Do you regret what you said about
This challenge that you're facing in this office, in the work that you're doing, and they knew because they faced it every day what the biggest challenge was. And then I asked them, what?
The public reaction has been predictably harsh. Many view Starmer's pension arrangement as yet another example of a political elite out of touch with the people they're meant to serve. Diane Abbott, never one to mince words, has seized on this hypocrisy. Her comments about Starmer's privileged background and lack of political instincts have struck a chord. She argues that his comfortable upbringing and lucrative legal career have left him ill-equipped to connect with Labour's traditional base. It's a damning assessment that could have far-reaching consequences for Starmer's leadership. As this story continues to unfold, one thing is clear: the gap between Labour's leadership and its core supporters is widening. Starmer's pension privilege is just the latest in a series of missteps that have left many questioning his commitment to the party's values. It raises broader questions about political accountability and whether our leaders truly represent the interests of the people they serve. Trust in politics is at an all-time low, but Labour's situation is particularly dire. Recent polling data reveals a startling trend. The word most commonly associated with Keir Starmer is liar. How did the party of the working class end up here? And what does it mean for their electoral prospects? The root of this credibility crisis lies in a pattern of broken promises that has defined Starmer's leadership. During his campaign to become Labour leader, Starmer made a series of bold pledges. He promised to unite the party, maintain key left-wing policies from the Corbyn era, and offer a clear alternative to the Conservatives. But his actions since taking the helm tell a different story. Instead of unity, Starmer has overseen a purge of left-wing elements within the party. The promised continuation of popular Corbyn-era policies has been largely abandoned.
Offence, again underreported, absolutely ruining of lives, and there are a number of measures that we are setting out this morning for. So this is a really important conversation to create that NHS of the future, a moment in our history.
And rather than offering a clear alternative, many accuse Starmer of merely echoing Conservative talking points on issues ranging from Brexit to public spending. This disconnect between promises and actions has severely strained Labour's relationship with its traditional base. Working-class voters, once the backbone of the party, increasingly feel that Labour no longer represents their interests. The abandonment of the Waspi women is just one example of how Starmer's Labour seems to have lost touch with its roots. The impact on public trust has been devastating. Polling data shows a growing disillusionment with Starmer's leadership. The perception of dishonesty is particularly damaging, as it undermines the very foundation of political leadership. If voters can't trust Starmer to keep his word, how can they trust him to lead the country? Within the party, dissent is growing. Labour MPs, particularly those from the left wing, are becoming increasingly vocal in their criticism. They argue that Starmer's leadership style is not only alienating core supporters, but also failing to attract new voters. The fear is that Labour is heading towards an identity crisis that could take years to resolve. The consequences for Labour could be far-reaching. With a general election on the horizon, the party's credibility gap threatens to undermine its entire campaign. Can Labour convince voters to trust them with the keys to number 10 when they can't even keep promises to their own members? As we look towards the future of British politics, one question looms large. Can Labour rebuild trust and reconnect with its base? Or is Starmer leading the party towards an electoral abyss?